I always feel like the world is my oyster when I have a solo episode because I can just like talk about whatever. Like I'm not going to talk about like my personal life updates when I have one of my favorite authors sitting with me. But today's episode, which we will get into in a second, is going to be like an Emily Henry deep dive because as of last night, I just finished Great Big Beautiful Life by her. So we will get into that in a second. Life updates, what's been going on? I think the last solo episode that we had, I was talking about how I started to run and then I jumped off an escalator and I hurt my foot and could no longer run. Well, could no longer run for like 2 weeks. It's kind of like where we're still at. I've run here and there and I'm like slowly getting back into it. But the issue is like I have lost my stamina to run since I started like very basic level. So I'm working back up to that. Also, my dogs are bunny killers or bunny injurers. This morning we heard from like squealing outside in my backyard and I go out to look and my little 1-year-old Boston Terrier has his face neck deep in a bunny nest, which granted like the mama bunny did put the nest smack dab in the backyard and the 3 dogs that I have chase her at least a couple times a week. So I'm not saying it's her fault that the bunny nest is in the backyard, but technically it is. I don't think any of the dogs injured any of the bunnies. We caught it early enough, but that was what's going on this morning. Also, my power went out, which is why my hair looks a little bit different. Not different. It honestly looks the exact same, but I just like we had this like plan to like try and curl my hair because I'm learning how to use a clamp curler, and then the power went out thanks to Hydro One because they're updating the neighborhood and yada yada yada. Here we are. But it's gorgeous and sunny and shining in Toronto right now, which is great. And also a great day to do an Emily Henry deep dive. My lore with Emily Henry is a little bit interesting. Also, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Emily Henry used to write YA fantasy before she went into this like contemporary beach read book lovers era. So I unintentionally read A Million Junes, which is one of her early books I think I checked my Goodreads. It was like 2018 when I read this book. Had no idea. Granted, didn't love it. I don't remember why. Unfortunately, my 2018 self didn't write Goodreads reviews and only did like the tags that you put on Goodreads. So I think I wrote like just like nothing tags. I have no idea. Like I don't remember what this book is about. So for the sake of this episode, I did screenshot the synopsis because even as I tried to like re-jog my memory on what the hell was going on in this book, I couldn't. So A Million Junes by Emily Henry has a 3.82 rating on Goodreads, which like is all right. But here we go. For as long as June O'Donnell has been alive, her parents have only had one rule: stay away from the Angert family. But when June collides quite literally with Saul Angert, sparks fly and everything June has known is thrown into chaos. Who exactly is this gruff, sarcastic, but seemingly handsome boy who has returned to their hometown of Five Fingers? Wow, this is like the epitome of like YA romantic fantasy books at this age. I remember them all being like, oh, they collided quite literally, but I ate it up every time. Anyways, seemingly harmless. Oh my God, I said handsome, but I meant to say harmless. Yeah. Who has returned to their hometown of Five Fingers, Michigan after 3 mysterious years away. And why has June, an O'Donnell to her core, never questioned why her late father's deep hatred of the Angert family? After all the O'Donnells and the Angerts may have had mythic legacies, but for all the tall tales they weave, both founding families are tight-lipped about what caused the century-old rift between them. As Saul and June's connection grows deeper, they find the magic ghosts and, what does that say? Coy wolves? This is why I don't remember this book, of Five Fingers seem to be conspiring to reveal the truth about the harrowing curse that has plagued their bloodlines for generations. Now June must question everything she knows about her family and the father she adored, and she must decide whether it's finally time for her and all the O'Donnells to let go, before her to let go. So very, very, very different than like the Emily Henry we know now. And again, I don't remember reading that, but I did according to my Goodreads, and I was a religious Goodreads updater in that time. So after reading A Million Junes in 2018, I picked up People We Meet on Vacation, which I think was her first one. Maybe, or it was Beach Read. People Meet on Vacation was one of like the early ones that she had written. So I downloaded that as an audiobook because everyone was talking about it. And I very quickly DNF'd it. And truthfully, I don't remember why. I think it was just like I couldn't connect. And I love an audiobook, but I love an audiobook at very like certain times. Sometimes I'm just like not in the mood to listen to like 8 to 15 hour audiobook because I read books much quicker than that pace. So I DNF'd People We Meet on Vacation, bold claim, which we will get into in a second. And then I picked up Book Lovers, which everyone and their mother was raving about because who wouldn't want to read a book about books? Didn't love Book Lovers. And then I was like, okay, like third time's a charm. Let me pick up Beach Read because everyone was saying that this like everyone said that this was like the beach read romance book. So I read it on a beach and I also didn't like it. And that caused me to not read a single book by Emily Henry for 2 years. I thought, and granted, like, I don't think I thought they were bad books. They just like weren't hitting home for me. Truthfully, like I wasn't connecting to the story, the characters. I just like didn't really know where to go from there. And then I picked up Funny Story last year, loved it. And then I picked up People We Meet on Vacation again. Don't know what like gave me the spark to read People We Meet on Vacation again because I read Funny Story, I think it was like last June. And then I picked up People We Meet on Vacation earlier this year, loved it. And then immediately read Happy Place after that, loved it. A part of me feels like maybe it was like the audiobook component of it. Like I was just like ready to read a really good rom-com audiobook. But at the same time, I'm not really sure. And then yesterday I finished Great Big Beautiful Life, which I'm not saying anything. I'm going in the way that this episode is going to be organized is we're going in the order of me reading them, which is somewhat aligned with publication-ish. But yeah, let's dive into things. We're starting with Book Lovers because I'm calling it like the first Emily Henry book that I read in full. But I feel like I'm not going to say Book Talk lied about this book, but people lied about my expectations might have been too high. Sure, like I try to blame it on me, but I also feel like this book just like wasn't marketed properly. Like it wasn't the way it was tagged at this like as this small town book about books didn't really give me the vibe of a small town book about books because when I hear small town, like I'm thinking small town. I'm thinking like Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. I'm thinking Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez or like even Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Like those are all very like small town books at their core. And when I heard that Book Lovers was small town romance, I was like, great, I love a small town romance. And that just like wasn't the vibe it gave. I guess it's not like rooted. Maybe I like found family small town romances because that's what like all of those ones tend to have. But like this small city in North Carolina had so much potential to like give the small town energy and it didn't. I feel like that was a main reason why I didn't love this book. The second main reason, and I think I've talked about this in another episode, as to why I didn't like Book Lovers was the sister. Maybe it's just because I don't have a sister, but I could not figure out why Nora was doing these things for her sister. It was like people pleasing on a whole new level. And I was trying, like I was scouting Goodreads reviews for some validation as one normally does when they finish a book and rate it poorly. But I found like a section of someone's review that perfectly summed up my thoughts and feelings towards the sister in this book. And I felt so seen. I love when I find a Goodreads review like that. This is what they said. Libby, the sister, pushed me too far with her not being able to understand that Nora had a job and couldn't take 3 weeks off from work. Nora only worked until 5 p.m. and took one phone call, and Libby just had to puppy dog eye it. Nora was so self-sacrificial when it came to Libby. Yes, I was annoyed at Libby, but goddamn girl, take a hint and stop trying to help. She kept covertly trying to throw money at her sister, and it was weird. She gave up a lot of things and was about to do it again. She got some huge news and was like, I'm so selfish for even wanting this during Libby's midlife Hallmark crisis. So the whole reason they're in this small town is because of Libby. But I felt like Libby just like tried to become the main character of the book the entire time. And again, like I don't have a sister, so I don't know if it's that or just like I have a younger brother, and there are things that Nora did in this book. I'm racking my head for an example that I now cannot think of, but I just like wouldn't do it for my brother, and he would totally understand as to why I couldn't do certain things or why I had to work. So I could not wrap my head around Nora and her sister's relationship. And Nora and Charlie, like they just like, I don't know, they really didn't click in my brain. And the whole time it was like Nora was pushed to be this like frigid, icy queen and this like hardcore lit agent. And it just, I don't know. And as I'm saying that, I feel like that could have been what like took away the magic of a small town romance, but it's not. It's just like the whole vibe overall, because in Reckless by Elsie Silver, Winter, yeah, definitely Winter in the 4th book is like kind of a bitch. Like she's an ice queen, as it's so often referenced in Book Lovers. And what's another one? Alexis in Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, also like the grumpy person in the relationship. And that never took away from like the small town aspect of the book. So maybe like if Book Lovers is missing a prequel of different characters, so we can get a basis for this world and these characters, because I feel like we were just like thrown in and I just never fully connected to the story or the characters. So I gave Book Lovers 2 stars. And that is the lowest, I think. That is the lowest rating I gave any Emily Henry book. I just like didn't love it. I wouldn't recommend it. A small part of me does want to go and reread it or listen to the audiobook. But I'm worried I'm going to change my tune. And I've spent so much time saying how much I hated the sister in this book that it might be too far gone. And then after Book Lovers, I read Beach Read, which I had high hopes for this one because I was like, okay, redemption on a book about books. Because in this one, January and Augustus are both writers and they're both experiencing some writer's block. So they're like, hey, since we're going to be neighbors for the next little bit, like let's swap genres. Cool plot. Truthfully, don't remember anything that happens in this book. Granted, I read it. This was, I think, my last read of 2022. Does that make sense? Yeah, I guess so. And I just like never fully got a grasp on what was happening in this book. It was just like words on a page. Not much happened. I felt like it really leaned into fiction, women's fiction, lit fic. It didn't hit home. And not that a book like needs to have spice in it. I'm not saying that, because I love a YA romance. It doesn't have to have spice. They don't even have to kiss. But I just feel like there was no tension, no buildup, no chemistry or anything between these characters that I just like I never fell in love with it the way that I don't like. Sometimes this book has me questioning whether or not me and everyone else read the same book, because I feel like Book Lovers is like people's most beloved Emily Henry book. And it just, not Book Lovers, sorry. Beach Read is people's like most beloved Emily Henry book, and that hasn't changed. And I just like didn't feel the same way. And obviously when I read this book, this says 2024 that I reviewed it, but that's definitely not when I read it. This was my review back in 2022. I think I can come to the conclusion that Emily Henry's books are not for me. This was probably my favorite of the 3 of People We Meet on Vacation and Book Lovers, but I still didn't love it. Personally, I found Book Lovers to be very dull, and I couldn't even finish People We Meet on Vacation. Great, so I just repeated myself. Beach Read follows 2 authors, yada, yada, yada. Both attempt to write the other genre. Long story short, January usually writes happy romance books and Gus writes the exact opposite, so they switch. I didn't seem to connect with the plotline or the characters. The mention of cheating in the book also rubbed me the wrong way. I don't remember that. I don't think the characters cheat. Oh, I vaguely remember I think maybe like one of the characters' stances on cheating. Oh, I forgot I wrote this in here. And in addition to that, one of the plot lines reminded me of something that happened in my own life, and it made me want to throw this book across the room, not in a good way. I remember writing this review and being like, ooh, I don't know if I should write that in there. And I ended up doing it. There's a name of a character in the book was someone that, like, from my past that I did not want to read about, which is like such a stupid reason not to read a book, but that's what I did. And then following Beach Read, I did not pick up an Emily Henry book until last June, which I guess that would have been 2 years, which is wild. But my good friend Carter, who I am trying to get on the podcast as well, is a massive reader, and her and I read the same books, and we often have the same like reviews about books. So she texted me, and I tried to find the like old text conversation, but it must have been a voice memo that she sent me. But she messaged me and she was like, okay, I know you don't love Emily Henry, but I think she was saying she was reading Funny Story, and she was like, you have to read this book. And Carter and I, like I said, like have very similar reading tastes, and she's one of the only people who can be like, go read this book and not really give any reasons why. And I would like just go read it because I know we have very similar reading tastes. I think I fell in love with this book like 4 chapters in, which a lot of people have talked about how it like takes them a little bit to get into this book because it's somewhat different than her other books. I think I was immediately hooked. I think the main reason why I like grasped on to Funny Story so quickly was because it was like romance first. With Book Lovers and Beach Read, I think whether or not this is an accurate statement or I just didn't feel the romance or the chemistry, I felt like Book Lovers and Beach Read were very like fiction presenting, and the romance kind of took a little bit of a backseat. But with Funny Story, we kind of immediately, not necessarily like jumped into the romance because it's not insta love. It's like somewhat insta like, maybe I find you attractive, which I mean happens in the real world, so I'm not really fussed about it. But Funny Story, obviously if you're listening to this episode, you've read this book or you're aware there's going to be spoilers, but 2 couples, Miles and Daphne, and both of them get cheated on by their fiancés. And then the fiancés who cheated on them get together, and then Miles and Daphne get together. So I'm not going to say it was unrealistic, but it was unrealistic. Like that would not happen in real life. But I feel like it was kind of a breath of fresh air from Book Lovers and Beach Read because it was something so cheesy like that and then after, I think Daphne's fiance then kicked her out, and then she had nowhere to go but go stay with Miles. And then they fake date. That trope is another one where I like don't always love. I'm so sorry. I find fake dating to be very unrealistic, but it kind of worked in this book and I was kind of here for it. The romance overall, like when I read Funny Story, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I put it on my shelf of fame Goodreads like shelf, which is one step above favorites, something that I created I guess in like 2017 and haven't gone back since. I could totally just have a favorites shelf, but I choose not to. And at the time, Funny Story was like my number 1. Looking back now, I would be tempted to just put it on my favorites, take it off shelf of fame, and then give it 4 stars. Only because now I have read other of her books and realized the extent of like how deep the romance can go with her characters, which is why I'm tempted to go back and read Beach Read and Book Lovers because maybe I just effed up. But at the time, Funny Story was like my favorite of hers, so much that when I went to the UK, I bought a UK cover of Funny Story, which is it's gorgeous, and it was bloody expensive because the exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the pound, did I say euros at any point? I meant to say pounds because it was in the UK, is bad. But it like at the time of reading that book, it just hit so hard for me. And I have another one of my reviews. I love reading my old Goodreads reviews. I said, I get it now. It took me 3 of her books to understand, but I get it now. I loved this book from the bottom of my soul. It was so cute and kind of, oh, damn, this was the other thing. It gives And I don't know if we're taking a break from my review to talk about something else. This book, whether I was like subconsciously aware of it while I was reading it or I saw it on TikToks, this book gave such like Nick and Jess vibes, because she is so like type A and organized, and he's a little bit like chaotic, needs to get his life together, which is very Nick and Jess. And New Girl is one of my absolute favorite shows of all time. So much that like I'm making my best friend Brooke read this book right now because she put me on a New Girl and loves this show maybe even more than I do. But anyways, and then so on top of like the opposite of like type A and needs to get his life together, it's also New Girl-esque because they like move in together. Their fiancés don't get with each other, but they do move in together. Anyways, carrying on with my review. They kind of did give Nick and Jess vibes from New Girl. There's a debate on TikTok about this. They obviously give Nick and Jess vibes. They both get dumped, blah, 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 blah. This was just the perfect summer read that I will reread time and time again. I really think I need to reread all of them now because I feel like my ranking system of these books is a little bit biased as of right now, or maybe I'll say this at the end. No, whatever, I'll say it now. My current Emily oh my God, can I not speak? My current Emily Henry ranking of all of her books: People We Meet on Vacation, Happy Place, Funny Story, Great Big Beautiful Life, I'm sorry, and then Beach Read, and then Book Lovers, I would say. But People We Meet on Vacation and Happy Place are like top tier, and then skip a bunch, and then Funny Story, and then skip a lot, and then Beach Read, and then go down to the bottom, and there's Book Lovers. And then there's still plenty of shitty books that I've read after Book Lovers that aren't Emily Henry, obviously. Like, it's not the worst book I've ever read. I just didn't connect with the characters. Moving on to People Meet on Vacation, I genuinely don't understand how this is not everyone's least favorite book, but the large majority of Emily Henry readers dislike this book. It has the lowest, I think it's like 3.8 on Goodreads compared to all our other ones. That is the lowest ranked book. I don't get it. This book transcended my world. It transcended every romance book. Now, granted, like, it doesn't top, I don't have a favorite romance book, so I can't even say that. But at the time, it transcended basically every other romance book that I have read. And the most common complaint of this book is that what a lot of people say, because I don't feel it, so I always forget what people say, that People We Meet on Vacation feels like you are third wheeling two best friends. Which, granted, I didn't hear this before reading the book. After reading the book, I totally get it. But I'm totally here to be the third wheel because Poppy and Alex throughout the book had like so many inside jokes, so many moments that as a reader, you couldn't necessarily like connect with it or fully understand it, but it didn't matter because you were watching these two best friends fall in love and then fall out of love and then realize that maybe they were in love the whole time. And it was beautiful. So I don't care that I felt like a third wheel at some points. It was fun, and it was just, I don't know, like this is what I was saying with Funny Story, the romance in this one, and I don't like Friends to Lovers, and I definitely don't like Second Chance, but for some reason, People We Meet on Vacation just like totally changed my tune on these two tropes, and getting to watch Poppy and Alex, like the dual timelines like threw me off a bit, I will say that, especially because I was listening to it as an audiobook, so I wasn't visually seeing the like past and present, or I guess it was present and like summer number. I think that's how it was organized. I got a little confused at some points, but it didn't matter because I was so entranced with these characters, and I felt like I knew these characters for who they were and like what they stood for. Also, listening to People We Meet on Vacation started this like new theory of mine where I was like, maybe I only really love Emily Henry books if they're an audiobook, because like the audiobook narrator, I'm pretty sure her name is Julia Whelan, described or like read this book. Like, I love an audiobook and I listen to them all the time. Her and then whoever narrates, the name is blanking, it's evading me right now. Whoever narrates the like Throne of Glass, ACOTAR series is also incredible. But Julia Whelan, I think that's her name, is such an incredible narrator to the point where I felt like I was watching a rom-com movie about two best friends. Like, I know it's Emily Henry's writing who was like setting the scene, but the way it was narrated, just like fully entranced. I couldn't even listen to it while I was driving sometimes because it was so much fun to listen to while I was just like sitting down outside or sitting on my couch. And I listen to audiobooks at like 2.75 times speed, but with People We Meet on Vacation, I found myself like knocking down how fast I was listening to it because I didn't want this book to be done. I was not ready to say goodbye to these characters. So I think I didn't listen to it at 1, definitely, but maybe like 1.5 of some sort. I loved this book, and I loved Friends to Lovers. I guess it wasn't really, what are they? Strangers to friends to strangers to friends to lovers. I guess that would make sense. I don't remember how they originally met, but I don't think they were like childhood friends from what I remember. Then we move on to Happy Place, which on some days, I know I just like talked about my ride or die as People We Meet on Vacation, but there are some days when I think that Happy Place is actually my favorite Emily Henry book. It depends on the day Happy Place, damn, I just like this book because it's the one I read most recently. And I have the physical copy of it. I will say it is somewhat ugly for audio listeners. Not the spine of the book, but the pages are stained blue. I got it at, the only time I've been canceled in my entire life, this is slightly off track. The only time I've been somewhat canceled, was when I went to the Works in the UK and I thought it was this like little indie independent bookstore where you could find cheap books. But no, it is a massive chain, not only in London, but in the UK that isn't known for selling books, but is known for selling crafts. So it would be like someone from the UK coming to like Canada and saying like, you guys got to go check out like Value Village for books. Like that's basically like what I said. Sorry, my bad. But I got this book at the Works and at the time I hadn't read Happy Place, and I didn't even read Happy Place in paperback. I read it as an audiobook, which then goes hand in hand with my theory that maybe I only like Emily Henry books if they're audiobooks. Damn, where was I going with that? Happy Place just holds such a beautiful spot in my heart. And I don't even think I would have picked up Happy Place if I hadn't read The X-Files by Jessica Joyce last August, because that was my first second chance romance that I had ever read and loved. Maybe not ever read, but The X-Files was the first second chance romance that I really, really loved. And I felt like I really connected to these characters. And I feel like that was like a pushing point to pick up Happy Place. And I was a little nervous because I don't love the second chance romance trope when they have to pretend that they're still together. Because we know I already really don't love fake dating. And then you throw in like a second chance thing and it just like gets way too messy. And I was a little worried of that with Funny Story. I was also worried because when this book came out in, I think it must have been 2023, no one really loved it because it followed Beach Read and Book Lovers, which seemed to be most people's favorites that I talked to. So I'm definitely in like the minority of Emily Henry book favorites, I guess you could call it. I heard people either say Happy Place made them sob or Happy Place they just didn't like. They gave it 3 stars, which is always concerning. I would rather someone rate a book 1 or 5 stars because it provoked that much emotion out of you that either you hated it so much, which sometimes if you hate a book, the book is still good. You just hated what happened in the book, or like 5 stars is an easy thing. But 3 stars mean you were just like neutral about it, in my opinion. So like that good old saying where it's like, it's better to be, what's worse than someone hating you? It's like when they're like indifferent towards you. And I feared that was what was going to happen to me with Happy Place. But I trudged on and I downloaded the audiobook. And within a few chapters, I knew I was going to love this book. The difference was with People Meet on Vacation, it took me a bit. It took me, I don't want to say 25%, but I'm going to say it probably took me about 25% to get like fully invested in the series and the characters. But with Happy Place, I felt like the synopsis did a really good job of setting the scene on what was going to happen so that I could immediately just like jump in. And I felt like I already knew these characters. And there's like three main, like, I guess like pillars as to why I loved Happy Place so much. The first one is that I didn't see myself like fully in Harriet, but I could definitely understand every decision that she makes. She was a people pleaser. She did so many things for the people around her. And while I didn't like necessarily support the people pleasing or the decisions she was making, I knew where they were coming from. And I feel like I'm at a point now where like, okay, I used to be a really bad I guess a really good people pleaser, but like bad for me. And I feel like not that like, I don't know how to properly explain this, but I just felt like I understood Harriet and where she was coming from, although I'm trying to move out of my people pleasing days. And their relationship was just like the way they understood each other. There was just a lot of understanding and connection in this book that I loved. Second reason was the representation of having a friend group. I don't know how old these characters are, but having a friend group past university. I'm not even 1 year out of university, and I already felt so seen with like the difficulties in trying to get your friends together. So there's like 6 of them in this story and they're dating, which makes it easier. But like, and I love all my friends, and I have like pockets of friends and friend groups here and there from like elementary school and high school and uni and work and all these things. But trying to get together with my high school friends as I was texting them on like the way here is so hard. We are planning out like coffee, like an hour to an hour and a half of like chatting like a month out, because once you're out of school and once you're like not working with certain people, it is very hard to get together as adults because people are busy and you have nothing like tying you together anymore. So I felt like as like Sabrina was trying to get everyone back together and everyone back to the happy place in this book, it just like this book felt a lot like real life and the troubles that we go through in real life. Something as like simple and as stupid as like trying to get coffee with your high school friends who I loved that part. Another thing that I really loved in Happy Place that I feel like a lot of other people didn't like was the use of miscommunication in this book. Normally, and I'm guilty of it too, I don't like miscommunication, especially when it results in a third act breakup, because it just feels like you want to yell at these characters. But the thing about miscommunication in books, the reason why I think readers don't like miscommunication in books is because it feels like it's real life. Like it doesn't feel like fiction. In real life, we misread texts. We misunderstand someone's tone and then we think they're mad at us. We're scared of confrontation. We're scared to tell people how we truly feel. And I feel like when this is put into books, we don't compute it the same. And when it happens in books, we want to yell at these characters, and we should really be looking at ourselves sometimes. And I'm guilty of not liking miscommunication, but I felt like the way it was written in Happy Place was like, it just felt real and it didn't feel stupid. And yes, the characters annoyed me and I wanted to yell at them, but it just like, I don't know. It felt like I was like having a glimpse into someone else's life. And I had a lot of sympathy for these characters as they were trying to stay friends and trying to find love again. And just, Happy Place makes me stumble on my words and no thoughts come to my brain, but it's just such a real and raw book. I don't think I cried, but it definitely packed the biggest punch out of all of her books. This now finally brings us to her most recent book, my most recent read, which I genuinely, today is Monday, we're filming this episode in the same week that it's going to be published. I finished Great Big Beautiful Life last night. Also, I wanted to read this early so bad, and now I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because, and again, I begged on my hands and knees for an arc and I didn't get it, and it's totally okay, but it kind of worked out for the best because I went to I could go see like other people's reviews that like spoiled some part of the book after I finished last night to like not necessarily get validation, but just like see what everyone else is feeling. Anyways, Because the reason why I wanted that is because I don't know how I feel about Great Big Beautiful Life. And I hate to say that because I was on such a good like tangent of loving. I don't think tangent's the right word to use there, but after loving Funny Story and People Meet on Vacation and Happy Place, I was in such a good spot with Emily Hunter, and I still am. Like, genuinely, she is an auto-buy author. I will read anything this woman puts out. But Great Big Beautiful Life, I don't know how I feel about it, guys. Because when we were originally hearing what this book is about and what was going on, it was like very heavy on family. And I don't know if that's like, family was not the main thing that I pulled out of this book. I didn't pull much out of it, but family wasn't something I pulled. The like overarching thing, which I will get into a second, is just like life. And that's what I pulled from it. But basically, if you have read this book, it's gonna spoil it. So if you haven't read it yet, I would suggest leaving now and coming back to listen or watch once you've finished it. But Great Big Beautiful Life is about Alice and Hayden, who both want to write a story about this woman that no one has seen in like 20 years. And they approach her, and she gives them both 1 month to like interview her, collect knowledge, and like write and pitch her this book. And then at the end of the month, she will choose who she wants to write this story about her. So again, we have a book about books, and I was intrigued. The story never really hooked me. The romance hooked me, but the actual storyline itself, I found to be very confusing. If you've read this book, which you should have at this point, there is like the present of the book, and then there is the story of the book. I didn't like the story of the book because there was too much going on, I felt, with the amount of timelines and the amount of characters and the like potential scandals and actual scandals and the pregnancies and the doctor visits. Like, there was way too much going on to the point where I just like didn't want to figure out what was going. And I'm a skim reader. I'm a proud skim reader to the day I die. I'm not skipping over chunks. I need to make a video about how I actually skim/speed read, because I'm not skipping over I'm still reading the book, but I don't read every word. And I felt like in this book, I actually had to, because I was not missing so many things, but there were so many minuscule details. And truthfully, I didn't love having to do that. There was a lot, and they weren't even like minuscule details that meant that much at the end of the book, because at the end of the book we find out that Hayden is actually Margaret's grandson, which didn't pack the punch that I think was intended to on my side. This was a great book. I never really fully connected to Margaret. I never really liked her as a character. And from the get-go of like her being this like mysterious woman that no one had seen in 20 years, and then as she starts to like interview with Hayden and Alice, and she was lying, and Hayden and Alice couldn't figure out if she was lying. Like, I don't think the mystery component in this book was 100% necessary. I don't want to speak for all readers when I say this, but personally, I was not invested in the side characters in the story and Margaret's life to care about the twist at the end. I think it would have been a different story if we got Hayden's point of view, but we didn't. We only got Alice's, and we got Alice's in first person. And this is a very rare circumstance where I'm going to say we could have benefited from having third person point of view to get even a little bit of a glimpse into Hayden's life, because even as an MMC in Emily Henry's novels, I felt like I never really got a good grasp on who Hayden was as a character overall. We knew what he was doing, but we didn't know how he was feeling. Like, from the get-go, you could tell he was a very like attentive and caring person. He like showed up when the storm was happening, when he couldn't get a hold of her, and he got her that like coffee order that he left with her. There was a couple other instances of Hayden that I admired and I loved. but I just didn't know who he was as a person and his intentions behind like certain actions or certain things that he said. I just never, like, he's not like Alex and he's not like Wynn. I will say that. Like, I just like, I'm kind of at a crossroads with where and how I feel about him as a person. And then on top of not really getting Hayden, I felt like Jody, I also really didn't get. And then finding out at the end that she was Margaret's niece, right? Yeah. I wish we got like more of a glimpse into who she is. I feel like we got too much information and then not enough at the same time. We didn't get information where I feel like it would have been beneficial to have information. We could have cut down on the story chapters in the beginning to get a little bit more of a glimpse into Jody. Like, I don't think Jody and Alice ever really spoke on like a one-on-one thing. The whole book, I thought Jody was like, just like a maid or a housekeeper, like in the same vein of like, they're not part of your family. Margaret never made any indication that she ever really cared that much about Jody. And it hurt my heart finding out at the end that that was literally her niece. So I didn't love that aspect of it. The romance on the other side is kind of what saved this book a little bit. And I'm a little bit surprised to say that because the romance in Great Big Beautiful Life did not follow like the same pattern of romance that a lot of romance books tend to follow. Like, they kissed very early in this book. They kissed maybe they didn't kiss, but they got very close to kissing a little bit too early in this book for my liking, to the point where I was worried we weren't going to get a slow burn. By the time they actually like had sex, like hooked up, were very, very like later on the book. But we had a lot of moments of them being close with each other, which I was worried I wasn't going to love. But truthfully, at the end of the day, when I finished this book, I kind of came to appreciate it in the same sense that I appreciated the miscommunication in Happy Place, where it felt very real in real life. The like almost kisses and the like, oh, like I want to kiss you, but we shouldn't be together. And what else happened in this book where I was like, oh, this kind of like actually feels like a little bit of real life, in the sense where like in an actual like real life couple, you're not waiting until 75% of your story relationship to actually like get together or like stay the night and things like that. But this felt like a little bit more of like dating, in a sense, dating without actually dating. And it was kind of fun to watch these characters fall for each other in a sense. Although I will say, who said I love you first? I would think it was Hayden. Hayden said I love you a little bit too early in this book. And I think that's another reason why I think it could have been beneficial to have his point of view in the book, because it feels like we went from him saying, no, like, let's just be friends, to him saying, like, I love you. A little bit early for my liking. But the romance, I still feel like, was very endearing and sweet. And by the time I finished this book, I felt very content with the book. I will say, after finishing it, I didn't feel like anything was missing when I finished it. And I loved how at the end we got like this is like your great, beautiful, big, am I messing up on the title? Great Big Beautiful Life. I like how it was tied in at the end. And I didn't have any plans to annotate this book, but I actually did. Okay, whole book setup just had to be changed there for audio listeners, because I stupidly put Great Big Beautiful Life at the bottom of the stack. I have 4 annotations in this book of my favorite quotes that I found from this book, with the number one being, not the number one, but the first one in the book. I didn't annotate until page 182 of this book. And it says, life is so complicated, and I think it's human nature to try and untangle those complications. We want everything to make sense, and that's okay. It is a worthy pursuit. But back when my sister wasn't well and every day felt uncertain, I searched for the words. His forehead creases, his tone so hopeful, it breaks my heart. You understood how much each one was worth. I understood what really mattered, I offered. I understood my priorities. I understood that in this life, what was non-negotiable for me. A lot of people don't find that out until it's too late. They wait to say things, they don't get the chance. So collecting other people's stories, learning from their mistakes is a gift too. You are who you are right now because of what you did for Len and his family, yada, yada, yada. I felt like this quote of like figuring out what matters to you, necessarily like it didn't hit home, but it just like hit. And I feel like Emily Henry's writing tends to do that. She has, as much as like I didn't love Beach Read and Book Lovers, we're like going to avoid that for a second. The way that Emily Henry writes is truthfully like no other romance book that I have like read before, and I love her for it. What else did I annotate here? I realized the other two annotations I had were just scenes, but this was my other favorite quote that Hayden said. He said, "I think you live in a world that's more interesting than the one most people live in, and I wish I could live in it too." This really summed up how Alice was as a character, and even though truthfully I could not connect to her character at all, it has nothing to do with her personality, but the reason why I loved her so much was because of her personality. She was a very like glass half full person, and it was very endearing for a book that like got a little bit dark sometimes. I really like came to appreciate Alice's point of view in this book, and just like the way that she saw things, and it was very evident that even those around her, I think, could see like, not necessarily, she wasn't like, I wouldn't say a ray of sunshine. She was just like kind of the person who believes that like everything happens for a reason, good or bad. And I kind of loved her character for it. And that kind of sums up my like very scattered thoughts on Great Big Beautiful Life. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'm leaning on giving it like 3.5 out of 5, which I hate to say. Like, I wanted to love this book so bad and I couldn't. I never really fully connected with it. But now I'm free to, I was avoiding every single spoiler on social media about this book. Like I looked on Goodreads here and there because they're not like major spoilers, but I saw nothing on social media. So now I'm going to do a deep dive on this book to like get some validation. I don't think it's been people's favorite of hers from what the like very scattered things that I've seen. But now that we've wrapped up all the books, I found this like, I used to love doing BuzzFeed quizzes when I was younger. This is not a BuzzFeed quiz. This is a penguin.co.uk quiz that I'm doing. And the quiz is, which Emily Henry character would be your perfect match? And I'm going to read out all the options. Okay, take the quiz. Let's do this. Are you attracted to men or women? And the options are men, women, or both. Men. Next. Describe my perfect type. Number 1, serious and clever. Number 2, cheeky and charming. Number 3, shy and emotionally intelligent. I'm going to have to go with cheeky and charming. What's your idea of a perfect date? Number 1, anything involving coffee. Number 2, horseback riding or an activity in nature. Number 3, going to a fun fair. A fun fair. I don't think we use that terminology here. Number 4, browsing old bookshops. Now, like a date, I'm gonna say coffee, only because like I don't like coffee, but a coffee date I think is an ideal first date. You're ordering a drink. What do you go for? An old fashioned, a pint of lager, a Coke, a gin, a Coke. No, I don't drink any of these. Or a mocktail. I'm going to say a Coke. Okay, next question. What's most important to you? Someone who is, number 1, charming and fun. Number 2, kind and emotionally intelligent. I don't know. Emotionally intelligent, it's hard to come by these days. I'm going to say emotionally intelligent. Number 6, I am looking for an introvert or an extrovert. An extrovert, because I'm too introverted. I want, number 1, someone who challenges me and helps me grow. Number 2, someone who's happy to chill. Someone who challenges me and helps me grow. What is my preferred way to get about? Taxi, bike, bus or train, or walking? Walking. You just got home from work. Preferably, your other half is 1, reading with you on the sofa, 2, cooking dinner for you, 3, taking you out for a meal or a movie. I would say cooking dinner because I cannot cook. Okay, 10th question. How much do you like to read? Oh, I'm a total bookworm. No other options. Which of these flaws could you forgive more easily? 1, arrogance. 2, trust issues. 3, poor communication skills. Oh my God. Which of these flaws could you forgive more easily? Forgive more easily. I could forgive poor communication skills because I don't have great communication skills. Okay, last question. Describe your dream wedding venue. A field or a meadow, a large mansion with gorgeous grounds, simple but elegant church. Not a church. I don't want to get married. None of these. But probably none of these. Okay, I'm gonna take back my church comment. I don't want a church, but I want simple, so I'm putting that. Oh no. My match was Augustus from Beach Read, which is not what I would choose. Okay, this is what it says. Brooding and mysterious, Beach Read's hero has a ton of charm, but you can get to know him. What? But you can get him talking, that is for sure. He's a bit grumpy and cynical, and he has trust issues. But after what he's been through in the past, can you blame him? Behind the wall he has up, you'll find a charming, empathetic, and emotionally intelligent man. Bonus points, he's a writer of serious fiction. Hot. That was good. I'm going to leave the link of like where I did this quiz in the description of this video because it was kind of fun. It's from Penguin UK, which is the publisher for these books, which is also kind of fun. Okay, cool. I don't like that response. Okay. Guys, that pretty much sums up our Emily Henry deep dive. Oh, but okay, if I'm going to recommend one book, if you somehow got through this whole episode and haven't read an Emily Henry book, kudos to you. I don't think I spoiled that much. I just talked about my thoughts and feelings of this book. I would say it depends on where you're coming from. If you are a romance reader at heart trying to jump into Emily Henry, I'm probably going to recommend you Funny Story because I feel like the romance is like most prevalent in Funny Story. If you are a reader who reads a bunch of genres, please read Happy Place, I would say. Even though People We Meet on Vacation, also, damn, I should have mentioned this when I was talking about People We Meet on Vacation. On top of going to the UK and buying the UK cover of Funny Story, I also went to the UK and bought the UK cover and title of People We Meet on Vacation, which is called You and Me on Vacation. And I didn't actually, as we know, I read this as an audiobook, so I didn't actually read this book, but I'm pretty sure there's an Emily Henry book that has a different ending than the North American book. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's maybe this one because this is the only one that also had a title change. So maybe what I will be doing is reading this guy next. Damn. Okay, cool. So yeah, so if you are, I'm going to put this guy up here. If you are a romance reader, Funny Story. If you are an all-around reader, Happy Place. Just maybe bring some tissues because I only shed a couple tears, but it definitely packs a punch. But yeah, thanks guys for listening to Off the Shelf, and we will see you next Thursday.